British man, American woman. Someone says she's a very pretty woman.
Notting Hill.
Yeah, Notting Hill.
Yeah, I just watched that movie like not even a month ago.
Yeah.
I was like, why do I know this? What is this? Yeah.
Great movie. Great scene.
So good. That scene when she walks down the stairs after like putting the dress on, when she first comes, like, remember he spilled the coffee on her and then she came back and changed. You see her like walk down the steps. In my I feel like that was my, because I was in 99. I was a freshman in high school, but I remember that being one of those like, oh, I'm in love with Julia Roberts now. Like that was that scene.
Oh,
yeah. Like I didn't know it, but I am now. Here we are.
We watched Pretty Woman the other night. I don't know why I came up on on some feed or whatever, and I was like, oh, let's see how this holds up. Kind of like a rewatchables
right
sort of experiment. And it held up. It wasn't too bad. It navigates kind of class and sexuality and that sort of thing. But I mean, it's really just a commentary on capitalism. There's really no like race per se. So in its absence, maybe there's something to be said for that. But in the end, it's kind of just it's a blatant sort of fairy tale. So that's nice. And the whole like glamorization of prostitution, that's nice, I guess.
Right. I have a story for that. So
yeah, there's definitely inherently it's problematic, but it held up and it was enjoyable nonetheless.
Yeah.
And, right, like it doesn't try to do too much, and it stays true to what it tries to do from the very get-go.
Right.
But all that to say, she's walking down Rodeo Drive that first time to like go shopping, and so she's on her own. She's in her clothes from the night before, and like people are like stopping and turning and looking at her. And I think it's 89, maybe 90 something.
Like that, yeah.
Or 93, 97, I have no idea the year. But so 30 years later, we were downtown. I was out somewhere, and there are people in clothes significantly less fabric than what Julia Roberts' character is wearing. Even to like the boots and like the
casually, like just
totally like sitting in the restaurant in the seat next to us, and they're in like their 40s and 50s, and they're wearing things, and they look fine, right? Like no comment. There's no judgment or commentary on
how times have changed.
What's that? That's commentary. Like how if she's wearing that outfit out somewhere now, it's not even a thing.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what that says. Like, what's the cultural transitions of evolutions? Yeah. Like, again, like I mean, whatever. It's clothes and like people own things around it. I'm just curious because I'm just curious of the delta. Like, what precipitates the cultural tolerance of like that outfit not acceptable for a normal person to wear, but that's a prostitute's outfit, versus 30 years later it's a suburban housewife's outfit.
Like I'm sure it's bound to happen sooner or later. Pretty Woman will get remade because there's the common Hollywood's running out of ideas, so that's why you're seeing a bunch of reboots and all that. Well, it's like, are they running out of ideas? Because
somebody wrote it somewhere in a book I read once. Right, in Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun. There are no new stories, Eric. Like it's not that Hollywood ran out of stories. We don't have any story. We tell the same stories over and over again.
You obviously haven't seen the trailer for Cocaine Bear.
You mean humans' desire to anthropomorphize animals? That's you're right. That's totally new. There are no mythologies where Oh wait, what are those things in the sky that we call constellations? What form are they in? Bears,
Cocaine.
crabs.
Oh,
Right. There are no new stories, my friend. It's not
that was
Hollywood.
actually. Do you know that's actually based
Not
on
wrestling. It's not anybody. It's the same story because we are simple little monkeys staying busy until we die.
It's Cocaine Bear apparently is based on a true story, by the way.
Of course it is.
I'm sure it was dramatized just just a smidge for TV, right? Just a smidge.
But yeah, of course Pretty Woman will be remade because it was a remake. You know what I mean? It was a retelling. It's Cinderella.
Yeah.
So it's right. It's just
basically what it is, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. It's the same story told over and over and over and over and over again, which is fine. It's just there's so many problems culturally or whatever, or not problems. I mean, you could create conflicts within that if you wanted to, in the sense of it takes a man to save a woman. Right, and he saves her via commercialization of basically like she was fine, she just needed money in order to, you know, manifest her capabilities and blah 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 blah. So whatever.
What I was gonna say was I'm curious if that movie gets let's say that movie gets remade within the next 5 years.
Okay.
What is she wearing? It's turning head.
Right.
Like, what is she wearing that people are like?
Well, so that's interesting that in the remake, it has to be a female. It has to be a heterosexual, you know, male dominant female prostitute. Why couldn't it be a female John and a male prostitute?
Female? Oh no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Why couldn't it be female? Why couldn't it be male? Why couldn't it be a transgender story? I mean, there are a myriad of ways to more aptly reflect the cultural angst or the cultural issues that are at play there, that somebody of class saves kind of the diamond in the rough, who is all they need is just money, access, opportunity, and they too will be of worth for society, right? So that's the story. But anyway, I mean, but it's a great story. Like it's a tale as old as time, my friend.
Yes. Isn't that another movie?
Somewhere.
Yeah, about some poor girl. Anyway. Well, it's funny. So, like I say, right? Like you talk about all these potential like conflicts with movies, and like part of me wants to say, yeah, but it's also just a movie. So like, you know, don't take it so seriously. It's just a movie. It's meant to escape and blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, like, I don't know how old we were when we first saw it. Like, we watched it with my parents. And probably not, I'm sure, I don't know what the rating was. Probably PG-13, I would guess, at least at the time. But I remember my sister went to school, like, that next week or something, and not really understanding the concept of it, went to school and told her teacher that she wanted to grow up and be a prostitute one day.
Hey man.
So like, what do you guys
Hollywood. Everybody wants to be in Hollywood. What's your dream, man?
What's your dream? What's your dream?
Hollywood.
Which was nice though, because later, not that much later, she saw Sister Act and decided she wanted to be a nun. So we're like, okay, good, cool.
Well, I mean, either ends of the spectrum. Hopefully, she landed somewhere in the middle. She sells insurance.
She did real estate appraisal.
Good. All right. I wasn't too far off.
She's a lesbian real estate appraiser. So there we go. I don't know what that is. That somewhere in the middle? I'm not sure. Who knows? At least I think that's what she's up to. I don't know.
Get married, owns a house, pays her taxes.
Oh no, she doesn't own a house. No.
You know, I mean, whatever. Just another day.
She lives rent free in my mom's house. Anyway. Moving on from that,
she's investing her time to hope to have it left to her in the will.
Let's say biding her time. Is that it? Biding? Am I saying that right? Anyway, that's a whole different podcast. That's not a podcast, but conversation.
This is our cold opening because I have no idea what we're talking about today, right?
It came to me yesterday. For me to dive in, and so we won't. So TJ, who's current intern here at the CrossFit of Fairwinds, So he's cool. He's been shadowing and stuff, and he's getting into it. He's been a member since at least last spring, summer. So he's been here for almost a year. And he started interning about a month ago, but he was a fixture of the 6:15 a.m. class. And he's actually going to get his level 1 at the end of the month. So as you're listening to this, end of this month, March. So he's going to get his level 1. He himself is he's a personal trainer at Spark Fitness, that little gym where next to what is that? Mission Barbecue, where Pier 1 used to be. So it is
like was there a burger joint there?
There is, I don't know if it's still there, but yeah, BGR I think was there.
Does it just always smell like food in that gym? Because that would be like, I am so exhausted from these thrusters, but all I want is pulled pork. I just need to get some brisket.
Remember you go back behind Old Bay and you can smell McDonald's. And
I really need to get something for my dog.
Yes.
like a dog store right there.
Right, I think there's over there. Yeah. So anyway, but he got into this, he really enjoys it, and he wants to get into it more. So anyway, he's really interesting dude, but he what's his name? Craig Richie, the YouTube guy. Yeah. Yeah, so he so I'm gonna read you what, like, TJ just had a question. And so I'm gonna kind of read you his question. And I thought we could dive deep into it, which is kind of cool. The question itself is kind of about intensity.
Oh, I got you. A la Craig Richie, like when he takes questions from his audience, and then that's the episode, is him kind of answering the question with some really good cuts and edits.
Yeah. So and then this is
an obligatory shots of his extremely fun and humorous wife.
Yes.
I think they're married, right? They're officially married.
I know. I haven't watched his videos that often lately, but I know they were engaged last time I remember. Yeah. So
he's awesome. She's awesome. They're very cool. I remember, he's got some longevity. He's hung out. He's ebbed and flowed. He went through an injury, didn't he? He got hurt pretty badly, like back or something. So
yeah, that was bothering him. But
yeah, I was always so he's critical, but he's so positive. Like he's always so. I guess it's just honest in his objective assessment of sort of the things that the community does. Anyway, very good podcast.
He's like the opposite of Andrew Hiller, where I think Andrew Hiller is like looking for something to be negative about and bash, where I think like Richie, he's looking for stuff to be positive, but also he's not afraid to criticize something, but coming from a place of, but they're trying their best and they're learning, and we're and we can figure this out, and it's going to be great because everyone's working really hard and blah blah blah. He just seems like a super genuine, likable, nice.
And that's his brand, right? The hustle, whatever. That's I mean, they've got some. I don't know if I feel like they got picked up by somebody.
I feel like they sponsor a couple athletes or something, and they've
So anyway, yes. So a la right, because there are no new stories, there are no new formats or versions. We're all doing the same thing, copying and stealing from those we admire. And
yes, beg, borrow, steal.
As Thomas Hobbes says, imitation is power. So he apparently has power because we are choosing to imitate it.
And as Dwight Schrute said, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. I'm pretty sure that was him.
Who said that? McMahon?
Dwight Kurt Schrute.
Is that a country western singer?
Dwight Schrute of The Office. Dwight.
Oh, gotcha.
If I just said Dwight, you would have figured. I just said Dwight.
Maybe, yeah. I'm not a bad. Maybe watched an episode or two of The Office.
Oh, interesting. I don't think I knew that about you.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so I'll read you what TJ wrote. This was with his. I told him I was like, actually, I wanted to talk about this today. So he said, I've been watching Craig Richie videos for years. I've come back to certain episodes now that I'm in the CrossFit sphere. This episode is another defense of CrossFit. It's also a reminder that certain adaptations, like hypertrophy, can be achieved despite CrossFit programming not following the prototypical model of programming for those adaptations. But he says something interesting that stands out. While all WODs have intensity, not all intensities are the same. Given a rep scheme, the load for hypertrophy might be different than the load for STR. And like he says, choosing the appropriate intensity, load, speed, combination determines one, whether you can achieve those adaptations, and two, whether you can train for consecutive days or need to take recovery days before training again to achieve those adaptations. So, who chooses the intensity, the individual or the programmer? And so, we can I'll make sure to link the video that he's talking about. But the idea is he went into certain adaptations, but then the question is what is intensity? How hard can you go? Does it make sense to work out 7 days a week doing CrossFit at high intensity? Or even one point mentions if you're new to CrossFit, it's good to start maybe 2, maybe 3 days a week. You will be really sore at first, but then you kind of start to get used to it as your body gets used to it and adapts as it goes. But TJ's question at the end of it all was, who chooses the intensity, the individual or the programmer? That's the question. And I'm just going to leave that right there. And so, and I feel like that's the answer is much more nuanced than one or the other.
I don't really understand the question.
So
I'll tell you why I don't understand the question.
Yeah.
The question or the thing being framed hasn't defined its terms.
Okay.
So how does TJ define intensity?
Right. So I think that was one of the first.
Yeah. So first, what are we
start right there? Perfect.
What are we talking about?
So I guess we could start with even what is, because what is intensity? Because I think that's such a broad reaching term. We say people here.
It's not. Define it. You are a level 2 CrossFit coach.
Man.
You have the posters over your shoulder. You own a gym that has CrossFit in its name.
Yeah.
You have a definition of what intensity is.
It's your power output. It's your power output.
Time displacement over time. It's your ability to work over time.
Yeah.
It's work capacity.
Right.
So we have a definition of intensity.
Right.
And it is quantifiable and measurable.
Right.
So it is not a relative subjective term when we talk about capital I intensity, right? That's so if that's the case, how can I choose it?
How can you as the individual choose it?
Right. Can I
as the athlete?
Can I choose if the sun rises?
No.
Why?
Because you're not in charge of the sun rising.
Right. So can I choose what 2 + 2 equals?
No.
Right? We could if we wanted to get semantically into the weeds of what does plus mean? What does equals mean? But in the sake of geometry, we'll do it the way Euclid and the Greeks do it. So if I were to call something a triangle, you understand a triangle to be 3 angles enclosed by 3 straight lines, and that those angles add up to 2 right angles. They add up to 180 degrees. So 3 lines, 180 degrees. So if I have a right angle and a right angle, right? I have my 3 lines and I have an angle that is 90 degrees and an angle that's 90 degrees. Is this shape, I don't have 4 hands, or I don't have 3 hands, so I can't do it.
Right, I got you.
Is that shape a triangle?
No.
Because it doesn't match the definition that we've agreed upon. The 3 lines need to meet. Now, could I have an angle that's 90 degrees in my triangle?
Yes.
But the other 2 would have to be less than 90 degrees. And the 3 of them would add up to 180 and blah, blah, blah. So we define the term of a triangle by the variables or by the elements of it that moving forward. So I don't have to choose between, well, is this a triangle or not a triangle? Who chooses if it's a triangle? It's not your choice. It's not my choice. It's the definition by which we've agreed to understand the thing that we're talking about. Does that, you know what I mean? Does that
no,
make
I totally get it. So then, so you're right. Like that's what intensity is. Okay. Because so I guess I was coming at it from a more subjective standpoint, which is probably my first mistake. So I thought, I mean, if you look at, I said, look at Fran and just look at it as it is and look at Cindy as it is. Are you coming at those with the same intensity? And so maybe intensity is the wrong word.
Okay. So
so Fran being, for anyone that's never done CrossFit, 21:59 thruster pull up, 95:65, which in the CrossFit sphere is relatively light. And volume wise, it's low volume. And then Cindy, 20-minute AMRAP of 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 squats. And so would you attack those two workouts with the same amount of intensity? Fran being a workout that, like, let's say for, you're pretty fit person in a box, 4 to 6 minutes, maybe 3 to 5 minutes, go fast from start to finish and leave you on the floor. Cindy being something over 20 minutes, trying to get as many rounds as possible. If you come out with the effort, I'll use the word effort in this round, or even want to say intensity, the way the conversation was going. If I come out with the intensity of Fran that I would in Cindy, then I'm probably going to bonk pretty early, and my intensity is going to drop off. Therefore, I'm going to get less work done over the remainder of that workout, as opposed to coming at it from the, instead of being here, be here, and then try to sustain that over the course. And so that's where, which is where I think the conversations, which is where I think that question is coming from.
Right. So if I'm to take your comparison, so we have one CrossFit workout, one workout program, Fran, one workout program, Cindy, and we agree on the variables or the parameters of those two workouts, and they are set. So so we could say, as the programmer, and not so as not to fight the scenario, but to answer the question.
And I think I initially said that from looking at the workouts as they are from the programmer standpoint.
Right. So I'm picking between two workouts.
Yeah.
So I'm not so much picking intensity. I'm picking a thing from the menu, or an option. My one option is Fran. My one option is Cindy.
Yeah.
Right. So we said that intensity is a derivative. It's a function of power output over time. Right. So if the goal, because the independent variable most associated with the improvement of fitness is intensity. I feel like I read that definition somewhere. So the higher I can maintain my intensity, aka power output, the greater the degree of my improvement in my fitness.
Okay.
And I feel like CrossFit has defined what fitness is,
Correct.
Which is work capacity across broad modal and time domains. So if I have a workout like Cindy, we could do the calculation of how much work is getting done, force times displacement.
Right.
Let's just make up a number and say it's 1,000 for the sake of easy math.
Thank you. Easy math. Thank you.
And if I can do Cindy, how much work Cindy gets done, let's also make it easy. And let's say it's 10,000 units of measure. So Fran is 1,000 units of work done. Cindy is 10,000 units of work done. And then we're taking, right, like if we have a bell curve of, 1 million people have done Fran, 1 million Fran workouts have been done, and 1 million Cindy workouts have done. So I have 1,000 units and I have 10,000 units. And I know what intensity I want to get, what power output over time I want to get. So I have P power, and I have I, capital I, intensity on the other side of the equation. I have 1,000 over T equals, and let's say I want that to be 5. And then I have 10,000 over T equals, and if we're saying, right, we always want our intensity to be as best as it can. And maybe this is a newbie, and I know that like 5, totally made up, is intensity to get you the gains, the hypertrophy, or whatever other sciencey words, these pseudoscientists want to use. That, okay, then 5 gets you the improved fitness that we want. What is the variable that I'm needing to solve for? P over T. I filled in P, I filled in I. P over T, I filled in P, I filled in S. No. Work time displacement. So
yeah,
power over time. I'm solving for time. That's it. And we know what Fran should be, because we know how much work it's going to take to get it done. That's a known value. We know what the intensity is supposed to be to get the gains, quote unquote, the Z,
gains with Z,
right? And I know the same with Cindy. So what changes between the two of them? Time. And Fran is considered a what type of workout?
Short.
And Cindy is considered a what type of workout?
Long.
So if I'm 1,000 over X equals 5, 10,000 over X equals 5, what's that number in the bottom there? I think it's 2, and maybe it's 50. My math is off. Maybe 2, right? 1,000 divided by, or 500. So just to guess, so Fran should take about 2 minutes. Cindy should take about 20 minutes. Okay. Right? Like that. So again, if we were to do this in a way that is objective, or let me use the same terms, observable, measurable, repeatable, regardless of the programmer, regardless of the individual completing the program, and even regardless of how well or how well they move, how new they are, I need to remove as many variables as possible and solve for one that is as controllable as possible. And that is time. And it's been done. So the conversation of, well, should it be hard? Should it be easy? That's what they're asking, not intensity. Right? And so I would caution your intern, soon to go to level 1, to read the manual a little bit closer and to understand the terms that he's using. It would be as if I rode motocross or I did some sort of sport, and I used a series of terms in that sport, and then I went and played cricket. And I tried to use all of my motocross or surfing or baseball lingo and playing cricket. Oh, Ted Lasso, right? Perfect example. Yeah. Right? When the scenes between him and Beard, right? About the pitch and the this and the that. And he's like, and then Ted's like, let's hit practice training. Let's go do training, all right? And then, but wait, don't they call their shoes trainers? Same, right? And it's like,
so put my boot in the boot of the boot.
The terms matter, because otherwise we're just talking absurdity to each other. And I think for me personally, at the heart of that question is attempting to understand or project a sense of understanding around something that is actually quite simple, but just really, really difficult to execute well because of its simplicity. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Like, so are people trying to make it more than it actually is for the sake of, like you said, pseudoscience?
Correct. To make myself sound, it's the new coach who vomits language on a new athlete rather than recognize, oh, I think I saw something wrong in that person's movement, but I'm not sure exactly what it was. They've already moved on to the thing, so I've missed the opportunity to correct them. So instead of actually recognizing that I missed something or whatever, and stopping and slowing down, I'm just going to regurgitate cortical extremity through the heels and hips off, get harder, yay, right? And that's it. And so the coach ends up becoming a cat herder cheerleader rather than recognizing, no, like the cues are quite simple because it's hinges and levers. The body's hinges and levers. What is so hard is that you need to do it at the exact right time with the exact right language for that person that actually correlates to them understanding what you're saying and then affecting an improvement in the movement at the exact same time. And you need to do that at speed for that person and 9 other people in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? It's all quite simple. It's just really freaking hard to do. So instead, I'm just going to use really big words to sound smart to fight against the fact that, no, just...
I'm not totally sure. Yeah.
Yeah, just well, this person did Fran and they got rhabdo. Okay, well, what did they do? Well, I had them do PVC thrusters and jumping pull-ups, or no, PVC thrusters and banding, or just regular pull-ups. And then when they couldn't do banding pull-ups, do regular pull-ups, I had them do banding pull-ups. And then when they couldn't do banding pull-ups, I had them do jumping pull-ups. And it's like, so basically you short-circuited the force times displacement thing in order to drive them into the time thing. And it's like, no, I'm going to say they are only allowed to do this amount of work. And whether it takes them 2 minutes or 20 minutes, the intensity will regulate itself for the person that is only allowed to do this amount of work. So the intensity will choose itself. I don't have to choose that. If they mechanically have to move well, they have to mechanically move well consistently, and then they're allowed to increase load, increase distance, increase volume. Once they do that, guess what's going to also increase probably?
The big I word.
Time. Well, I will, but at first time will increase because it's harder. Yeah. And then once time starts to go back down and intensity starts to go up, now what else can I do? I can increase weight, I can increase distance, I can increase volume, time goes up again. And so what I'm controlling are the variables that I can control. What is your rate of improvement of hypertrophy? Do you know that? Like, what is your lactate threshold? Do you have the machine to measure that? Are you putting people on VO2 max machines? Are they wearing glucose monitors? Are they weighing and measuring their food? Do they have that log? Are they tracking it in sugar wad? Right? Like, there are so many things, sure, that if you had the capability and the equipment and the time and the staff and the education and the PhDs and the MDs to go along with the requirement to answer or at least define the terms that are used in that question, then sure, maybe we'd have that conversation. But I've been to the gym, right? Like, none of that stuff is there. You got a clock and some weights with numbers on it.
You have 2 clocks.
You got 2 clocks, right? You got 2 clocks and weights with numbers on them. So those are probably the variables that we should start with trying to control and let the intensity kind of figure itself out.
Now, would you say that maybe there's a confusion between like actual intensity and relative intensity there? Like that's the conversation, or even then, is that
perhaps what do you mean by said such things? How is something actual and how is something relative?
So one is how you feel and one is factual by the numbers.
All right. So so is there a means by which I can measure? I mean, because we're agreeing that actual intensity is what we've been talking about up to this point, right?
Right.
So how do you measure relative intensity?
I guess the measurement is I'm laying on the floor exhausted and they're not, so therefore I worked harder.
Oh, really?
Or I sweat more than they do, so therefore I worked harder.
Right, if we're talking relative, sure, right? That seems to me as good of a measurement as any. So when Matt Frazier crosses the finish line, he's not really, a competitor anymore, but we can go back on YouTube, and when Matt Frazier crosses,
open up the door for the rest of us.
Yeah, when he crosses the line at the CrossFit Games in an event, having destroyed the rest of the field, his hands over his head, right? Totally just doesn't even look like he did a workout.
Yeah.
And somebody in the field gets time capped and they collapse on the floor, roll over, and are exhausted. The one who did not win went harder than the one who won. That's your measurement of relative.
That's my measure. Yeah.
Because I feel like we're missing a word in that term that is bounced around in certain communities, fields, endeavors. I think there's a third word in that definition that we're missing. We're forgetting. Relative intensity. And for those just listening, I nodded my head in the middle. There's a third word in there that we're forgetting. REE. Relative
perceived exertion.
Perceived intensity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm struggling to understand how I measure perception.
Yeah.
That seems problematic to me if I'm going to claim that I'm practicing some sort of scientific methodology, but yet I'm going to use a subjective perception of the primary and most important variable to affect the outcome of my results.
Seems a little sketchy.
It just seems difficult to come to a shared agreement of objective measurement.
I like that you keep coming back to shared agreement, because that's what it is at the end of the day. Like you said it, and well, keep going, but you're basically like, there's a shared agreement or understanding of what is this thing actually.
Right, but we
agreed upon term.
But we already established like a triangle. It's not a shared agreement anymore. It's as objective as we can get because we define the terms. So we share in the agreement that we will define our terms. But once those terms are defined, like if somebody comes and goes like, "Hey man, you like my triangle?" What are you gonna say? You're gonna be like, "That's not a fucking triangle, man."
No, I'm gonna say great effort.
It's because you have shit to sell them.
That was a really great effort. You worked really hard on that. I can tell because you're laying on the ground.
Right. That's not intensity. Right. That's drama. That's emotional vapidness. That's need for attention. Sorry. Hashtag not sorry.
It was during a workout. And someone said today, like they finished the workout and they're fighting not to lay on the floor. And he's like, the Miko Salo, like, don't lay down on your back because you look like an animal submitting. Like get up and moving around. I think it was him that said that. And it's one of those, like, it does feel like that. Like if you really you finish a workout that just handed it to you, for the most part, like if you really think about it, you could probably get up.
Yeah, but if somebody showed up at the door with your kid and a gun to the kid's head, I'm pretty sure you're going to find some sort of ounce of energy to react and get off the floor.
Yeah.
Right?
It's in there.
If you're going to perceive the need to act or move or do something.
Yeah.
Right? Perception seems to be a very potent stimulus for my behavior to elicit some sort of response from external stimuli.
Right.
So if I perceive that I'm supposed to have worked quote unquote hard, and when I finish, I flop on the ground, and that yields reward from those who I've deemed worthy of giving me reward, then it creates that kind of habit loop of, oh, right, I finished the workout, I flop on the floor, everyone tells me I did a really good job, I feel good about myself, boom. That's not fitness. We're not talking, right? Like, that's totally fine, right? That's people being people and human behavior. But we're not talking about fitness as a function of work capacity anymore.
Right.
Right. And so
we're talking about a show.
So relative perceived intensity is not a measure of the program's ability to elicit improvement in your fitness. Fitness as defined as work capacity across broad modal and time domains. Is that right? Like, we're talking about two different things.
So now now this is where I have an athlete, let's say we'll use the workout we did today. It was a 10-minute AMRAP of a complex, so dumbbell complex, 10-minute AMRAP, 3 front squats, 3 thrusters, 3 squat cleans, 3 front squat, 3 thruster, 3 squat clean. Prescribed weights 50. So the complex should be unbroken.
Okay.
So the complex should be unbroken. The prescribed weight is 50-35. So 10-minute.
The complex unbroken to count it as a rep.
So I said no. If you don't do it unbroken, it doesn't count as a rep.
Okay, right. So you need to do the complex unbroken to count as a rep, and the AMRAP is counting how many reps of the complex that you finish in 10 minutes.
Correct.
That's sassy.
It is. It was awesome. It really was awesome. And so it's like, okay, the goal for this is like, so 2 ways you can look at it, and kind of based on our conversation.
8 to 12.
I 10 to 12 rounds. 10 to 12 rounds, or on a scale of 1 to 10, it should feel like an 8.
Okay.
So like that's kind of the conversation we're having right now. This one, like I would say, if you're a new athlete, I mean any athlete, but this is kind of the conversation. On a scale of 1 to 10, it should feel like an 8. You should get 10 to 12 rounds. So
I'm a new athlete. That's how many variables am I having to correlate in my head to figure that out?
A lot. Like
right. So in a sense, like, they're gonna fail. Right? That's way too many. Like, I mean, I can barely solve for like 1 or 2 variables, and I've been doing this for a while. Right. So I'm asking that new athlete, to solve for like 7 variables. So it's that if I'm, even as the coach or even as the programmer, asking about things of hypertrophy and whatever other elements of that in that question of like multiple system training across various days and blah 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 blah. Like, what are you asking the person to do? Right? If we boil it down to like its most simple thing, like, what are you asking this human being to accomplish across this 10 minutes? Right? Like, that, in a sense, might help clarify, like, because CrossFit as a methodology is GPP, general physical preparedness. And so could I equate 3, what was it, hang cleans? 3
squat cleans.
3
front squat, 3 thrusters.
3 front squats, 3 thrusters, 3 hang squat cleans.
Not just squat, yeah.
Squat cleans. So 9 times you're moving a bilateral load through space 9 times without putting it down, and 6 of them you're going overhead, like from the ground to overhead. That feels very much like farm loading of a truck, moving something, right? Like there's a a box or a pallet of like 9 rocks, and the rocks show up, and I've got 45 seconds to unload the pallet into the back of this flatbed before the pallet gets taken away and the next pallet shows up. And then I got another 45 seconds to unload it, and then the next pallet shows up, right? You could imagine that being, oh, all right, that seems about right. You said the stimulus was about 10 rounds. So, and I have to do an unbroken set of those 9. So what you're telling me is I should be finishing a round in about 30 to 40 seconds. Why? Why didn't I finish the round in like 50, 55 seconds?
Why shouldn't you? Or why, like, I mean, that's about how long it takes.
Why would I say 40 seconds?
Well, I don't know. I guess that's a good question. So I'm looking at this from like how long each one of those movements take. I mean, if I'm digging too deep into the weeds, but knowing that, like, okay, a thruster will take 2 to 3 seconds times 3. The front squat will take 2 to 3 seconds. The thruster will take 2 to 3 seconds, and the squat clean, let's say that'll take. Let's even just say 3. Let's say 3 seconds all the way across the board for all 3 movements.
Okay.
That's 9 reps. 3. That's 9 reps. 3 reps. Sorry, 9 reps times 3 seconds a rep is 27 seconds. Knowing that maybe it's a little bit heavier, so it's going to slow you down a little bit, but that's about how long it's going to take you. And then put in, I don't know, you're going to fatigue. So trying to find a pace, would you say 30 to 40 seconds is where you should be based on 3 reps a second. There's 9 reps per round.
Yeah.
27 seconds.
Well, no, there's 1 rep per round. There's a complex, right? They got to do the whole complex unbroken.
Right. Sorry. So one move. So each movement within that complex takes 3 seconds each.
Sure. Right. But I finish it. Right. So I finish the complex and I put the dumbbells down.
Uh-huh.
Then if I want to get 10 rounds, you said 10 to 12 rounds. I want to get 10
Are you getting
rounds.
it if you just do one every minute?
Yeah.
That makes it easy for you. Okay. I got to deep in the weeds. Yeah. Do one every minute. And you
So if I do one every minute, right?
Yeah.
So I'm the athlete. You say, oh, well, Coach Eric told me to do 1 every minute.
Yeah.
So in the warm-up, I pick up my dumbbells and I do my thing in the practice round, and it takes me 57 seconds to do one of the complexes. And I put the dumbbells down.
Deep.
Wait, what? Am I going to get 10 rounds?
Doesn't look like it.
No, things aren't going to go well for you.
Based on what I'm perceiving. No.
So I can know, like, okay, well, when I do that again, but now the coach comes around and says, hey, put those 50s back, grab a set of 25s. 25s instead of 50. So I pick up the 25s, I do my round, and now it takes me about 35, 40 seconds, right? Because you're moving a little bit more in line with what you just said, about 3 seconds a rep, 3 times 9, 27, blah, blah, blah. So I put down. And now I pick up the dumbbells at the top of the next minute, and I go again. I pick up the dumbbells at the top of the next minute, and I go again. And it's increasing and increasing and increasing in difficulty. But now I get, wow, I'm a little lightheaded, actually.
I'll have what he's having.
Am I at any point doing the math on what my intensity is based on the load I'm lifting and the distance I'm traveling and the time it's taking me across each thing? No. You told me it should feel like about a 6 to 7 or 8. Well, should it feel like an 8 right from the beginning? Should it feel like an 8 from right at the end? Should I get to an 8? Should it feel like an 8 my grip? Should my hypertrophy of my quadricep increase across this phased modality of different lactate threshold, blah, 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 blah. Eric told me I should do 1 round a minute, every minute for 10 minutes for this 10-minute AMRAP. I got 10 and I almost finished the last one, but I didn't quite get there. You nailed it. Good job. I'll see you tomorrow. Right? Like, that's it. Well, my relative perceived intensity, was it hard? It was hard. Did you sweat? Sweet. High five. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's, you don't have the qualification to be able to do the physiology measurements and changes and blah, blah, blah on that person. I don't either, right? Don't have any of the degrees. We don't work in a lab. You don't have the equipment. You got a stopwatch and you've got some knowledge of human movement and you know how to make people feel good and powerful to drive habituation of consistency of movement practices to bring them back the next day to make them healthier. If you chase the correlates of this methodology, you will fail, right? Correlates being improved cardiovascular respiratory endurance, lower body fat, better stat or better cholesterol levels, blah, 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 right? If you chase those correlates and try to improve each of them individually, the person runs the risk of not actually getting fitter if we define fitness as a measurement of their work capacity.
Mm-hmm.
But if you chase work capacity via the methodology as outlined on those 2 posters over your shoulder, you have a significantly higher likelihood of getting the results for the significant greater amount of people that walk through the door. So that question that is being asked is the problem. It is a question being asked by somebody who doesn't understand the terms that they're using. And they're using terms that sound similar to the terms that are written there without actually having read the book. And if he or she or whoever, right, like has read the actual manual in the book, then I would offer read it again and understand what those terms actually mean in the context of the methodology in which they are going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Not, and what I mean work is like practice as a CrossFit coach, not as a NSCA trained science, strength and conditioning or blah, 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 or whatever, or blah, 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 whatever, because that's right. If I'm going to take a test in that, well, then I need to learn the terms of that methodology and programming and blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't really want to. And I don't, right? Like, I don't want that coaching in a CrossFit gym. I don't come to CrossFit to get that. I come to CrossFit to get CrossFit methodology. And in that case, that's defined by I want to do more work. I want to do more work faster. And I want to do more work faster across the most varied time and modal domains as I possibly can. And I want to be able to do that for as long as I can until I, collapse at 99 or 102 because, the machine just shuts down. So that's my kind of long-winded answer to remove as many of the variables as possible, and 99.9% of the time, solve for time. It's going to be solve for time. Like that's the dependent variable that we have the most control over. And by the equation, it's the variable that has the most as the denominator of that force times displacement over time. It has the most power. It has the greatest influence on the increase of my intensity, right? Because it's independent. It's the sole dependent variable.
Right. You're gonna change. Got it. It makes sense. Keep it simple.
Yeah, and yeah. So somebody comes in, so they play devil's advocate, and the objection is, well, I had somebody do Fran, and they come in and they can't squat. They can't get into the bottom of a squat, right?
Mhm.
That's like they're exhausted.
Mhm.
They're training too much. So what do you tell that athlete? How do you manage that athlete? What, right? Rather than saying to myself like, fuck, I screwed that one up, right?
Yeah.
let that person, right? And I would say that's probably more experience than anything else. Like 99.9% of the time, have people do significantly less than what. Oh, Joe is a perfect example. I saw him, we were chatting, came back from his level 1, and he was like, I've never been that sore, and all we ever lifted with it was a PVC pipe.
Yeah.
How many times I think if I was a level 1 staff member, if I was, on that, I think that would probably become the thing that would drive me the most insane. If I heard that again, I would be like, Yep. I know. But it's in the level 1 manual: mechanics, consistency, intensity. And you all hijacked the mechanics and the consistency part and just went directly to intensity.
Okay.
It's hard to do things really, really well. There's about 9 other articles that talk about it. One of them is called virtuosity, right? Like doing the common uncommonly well is exceptionally harder than we think it is. So just hold the bottom of a squat for 10 minutes. That's all you're going to do today in today's workout. Just hold the bottom of the squat for 10 minutes. Let me know how that goes. Person's going to get into the bottom of the squat. 90 seconds later, they're like, it's so hard. My ankles hurt my shins. Oh my God, I can't do this. Be like, awesome. Come on out. Stop the clock. Start again. Hold it you're going to accumulate 10 minutes in the bottom. That took me 45 minutes to get done. Be like, sweet. That was your workout today. I'll see you tomorrow. Right? Like,
I bet you'll be sore.
But that aspect of, there doesn't need to be anything complicated about it, but that doesn't negate the difficulty of doing it really, really well.
Yeah.
And the more simple I can make it with my language, either through my cueing or my understanding of what's actually being said in the level 1 manual, the more affective I will be, or effective I will be for my clientele. And I mean that in both affective and effective. I'll be a more effective coach because I will actually understand what I'm talking about, and I will have a greater. Did I get that wrong? I'll let the other word nerds to figure that out and comment. That's my clickbait. That's my word nerd clickbait. But you will have a greater effect on somebody's improvement the more deliberate you are as a coach in not confounding the words and the things you're trying to say, because this actually isn't very complicated stuff. The energy systems and the lactate thresholds and the hypertrophy and the meso, micro, macro cycles and no, it's really, really fucking simple. Push, pull, squat, hinge, blah blah blah, like all the other stuff. Like, sure, like 9 fundamental movements. There's
simple like nutrition. Simple.
What's up?
Simple like nutrition. Simple.
Yeah, like, and again, like nutrition is quite simple. It's, fitness in 100 words. Like that statement, fitness in 100 words, is very, very simple. Now implement it.
Not easy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the nuance comes, is because how I implement it for a variety of people, or how I need to convey it to them. If the standard 80% way doesn't work, if you have somebody who, right, like there's 3 points of performance for each of the 9 general movements. So it's 27 points of performance. I mean, we can learn those, memorize those in less than a week, right? And 80% of the time, one of those points of performance and the cue to fix that point of performance for each of those movements will work for 80% of the people.
Yeah.
It's that other 20% that could be problematic, but it's that other 20% that everybody new wants to focus on.
Yeah.
Without having learned and perfected the 80%. Because the first question is, well, you keep using this word intensity, but what is intensity as defined by CrossFit? And that was problematic to get defined.
Yeah.
It's in like the third sentence of the What is Fitness article.
Yeah, it's right there. It's good.
Read the book, man.
I want to reread the book.
That's for your boy. I don't know TJ, so I can't talk.
No, he's
bad.
a good dude. I just say like he's really he's gonna make a good coach. Because and then, you know what though is like I like that he asks these questions. Like he really is. He's freaking curious. He wants to know and he wants to learn and he wants to and so I'm glad because I was like I felt like after having a conversation with him I was like I feel like I could do better. And so if anything, like this was just as much for me as it is him. To explain it better, to be able to verbalize it better, because I think myself I overcomplicate things.
One of the best exercises that I've done across the years is to like recalculate. Beyond the Whiteboard does this, I think, automatically if you use that logging system. It'll tell you like what your max power output, what your average power output was across certain workouts. So like if we use Fran
based on your height and weight and all that.
Yeah. And so you can see like, so if you did Fran with 75 pounds and it took you 3.5 minutes, and then you do Fran with 95 pounds and it takes you 8 minutes, what you'll find is that the Fran with the 75 pounds is a higher power output and a higher total intensity, or I guess it's higher intensity, higher total power output. Right. So you got fitter doing Fran with lighter and faster than you did heavier and slow. And so that functionality offers like the kind of that, the peek behind the curtain.
Yeah. But
it is beneficial to go through that exercise for yourself as many times as possible with multiple, not just yourself as an athlete, but with multiple people.
Right.
And in multiple iterations. And we did something very similar from a program standpoint. Remember we did we did a workout as a chipper, then we did it as like a 5 rounds for time, then we did it as like a 10 rounds for time, and like to
experiment.
See where for people like what optimized their power output as an athlete, just as like fascinating. And so in order to do that, I was doing math for everybody, in the moment having to do math. And so you realize, you quickly come to realize and see patterns like, well, the weight doesn't matter. The volume doesn't matter. It's all about time. Yeah. Like you can get somebody to drop 30 seconds, just 30 seconds across a 6 to 8 minute workout and they are 30 seconds better across a handful of different workouts in that 8 to 12 minute range across a month. They're going to have done like 7,000 joules more of work than if they are 30 seconds slower. So how do I get them to be 30 seconds faster? Just take 10 pounds off the bar. Yeah. And so that's if I were to tell you I could get you 20% stronger in 30 days, is that something of interest to you? Yeah, definitely.
Really is.
Take 10 pounds off your bar. Right?
What?
And do this workout 1 minute faster than the RX time that I'm giving you.
It's funny. Right? It's a different variable, and it's one that it's harder to measure, but just kind of talking about how you're playing with things. So with this workout today, so I've coached it 3 times today, this dumbbell workout. And the first class I had I don't know, 12, 13 people, and I had 2 lines. So here's the line in the front, here's the line in the back, and they're all facing the clock. And I had them right next to each other, line on line, all right next. Don't need much space for this dumbbell workout, right? So boom and boom, right there. And then I was like, okay, that was cool. Like I like them being close quarters, like the energy's up and all that. And then for 6:15, I had 8 people. I had them in a circle. So now they're all facing each other. And I'm just kind of playing with a different way. And then even in the circle, I saw someone every time he finished a set, he put his dumbbells down and he kept like creeping forward a little bit. I was like, at 9:30, I'm going to set up cones. So I set up 6 cones. I had them all start at cone 1, and every time they finished a round, they had to carry their dumbbell to the next cone.
Ooh,
And they finished round, go to the next cone. And so my thought was like, well, now they have a visual, like, so I'm like, all right, your goal is to get back to the beginning. So that would be 11 rounds. Your goal is to get back to the beginning. So now they have a visual representation of how much work they're supposed to get done. They have that visual of, man, everyone's like a cone or 2 ahead of me. I got to pick up the pace to catch up. And there's so many different variables that can come into play. But that 9:30 class had the highest scores of the day. If I were to average them all together, has the highest score of the day. And so that's kind of it's not as easily measurable from from the intensity standpoint, because again, there's so many variables taking into place as opposed to where we did 10-minute AMRAP, 5 rounds, and the other different ways you play with it. But it's just I just want to throw that in there. It was a fun way to kind of play with how the workout is perceived and then what could actually get a little bit more out of it.
Right. Well, and as you were saying this, it sounds to me like post-open, your population might be ripe for an RX month.
Right.
Because it sounds like there's not a lot of understanding of what that metaphor of a prescription actually means. Because the prescription is not the loading.
Right.
The prescription is not the volume. The prescription is the intensity. And so those loading and volume and then the time, because the time is known, it's a 10-minute AMRAP, are all just the variables to elicit or manifest the prescribed intensity.
Yeah.
And so the way it's being delivered, heard, whatever, but the result is a miscommunication of what the prescription actually is. And I mean that opens the door for the conversation of like, the gyms that go away from even using prescribed loadings.
Yeah.
Because they are often just noise for too many people.
Well, so I wouldn't say no. I think I'm talking about the difference of, I don't know, 5:15, 6:15, like a handful got 10 rounds, but 9:30 got 11 to 12 rounds. So it was close, but it was more. Yeah. Anyway. I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah, they got it. Like I think people got it. I don't think there was a miss in the intended stimulus of the workout with that. I just thought it was an interesting little experiment. I think more the mental side of it than it is the actual number side of it. So, but again, it could be anything. I just thought it was interesting. And that one drop of how many workouts we do over the course of a year and how many people do these workouts. Anyway, it was just something that fun talking about how we did it these different ways.
Cool.
That's all I got there. So anyway, well, thank you for answering that answering that loaded question of
Is that a CrossFit pun?
No. But speaking of pun,
Loading.
Actually, real quick, let me go completely off topic on a quick tangent, and I think we should get gratitudes in. Not remember anything. Yesterday in class, I asked the question about we're doing this and this and this. I said, we were doing box jumps. I was like, and if you're feeling froggy, no pun intended, jump over the box as opposed to jump on the box and step over. Or maybe someone asked, like, someone asked me if that was supposed to be a pun. I said, if you're feeling froggy, jump over the box as opposed to on the box. Someone asked, was like, is that supposed to be a pun? I was like, no. I was like, but is that a pun? That could be a pun. but I don't know if that's what it is. But also, people said they'd never heard the term, and I don't know if you ever not, feeling froggy. Feeling froggy from like feeling ambitious, feeling like up to it. Are you feeling like, if you're in the mood for it and you're ready to go, like go for it, feeling froggy. Have you ever heard that term before?
Yeah, definitely. I think if I were to make a guess, I'm pulling up Google.
Okay.
I think it is a I think it comes from post World War One, with the French and the British, as the like trench warfare drug on, and the Battle of the Somme, and there were different places that the French kind of stood out as they would always get up in the morning and make breakfast and make their food and get ready to do the charge, and right, and the British would be like, oh, there's the frogs feeling what, like I think that's where it comes from, but I don't know that for a fact.
Like that would make sense, because that's kind of what I'm getting at, is like, yeah, if you're raring to go,
if you're feeling jazzy and feeling like you want to give it a little something more.
Yeah. I think someone's read the definition, said like feeling ambitious. I was like, yeah, that's what it feels like. And but everyone looked at me like, no, I've never heard that term before ever in my life. I was like, come on, like you feeling froggy. And so I challenged everyone. I said, after class, I said, go out in the real world today and use that term in some form or another and tell me the reaction you get. And Van texted me like just a couple hours later, and he said, I'm getting a tour of the James Bryce house. The guy giving the tour just asked if any of us were froggy enough to climb a ladder. The guy beat me to it. I was like, that's it. That's it. Feeling froggy enough to climb the ladder. Yes. So
yeah, I don't know. I can't find anything fast. So I don't know. I mean, that's a great, if we had a fact check element, sort of like armchair expert, but we don't. So maybe kick it out to the listening audience, and feel free to text away, as they sometimes do randomly. Like I'll get a text from somebody at like 4:30 on a Sunday afternoon with like an answer, and I'm like, I don't know this number, and I have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
But yeah. So, like 8th grade language arts, repeat an element of the question in your answer so that there is context to what you're trying to say when you make the answer, or if you have the answer. But I think that's where it comes from. But that's a total like bullshit. Making up a guess, and Google is not helpful.
It could also be, it makes sense, because if you're feeling froggy, you'll hop to it, just get to work.
Right, like it could
be
just,
that too, right?
It could just come from. But that's a lot of kind of assumed metaphorical relationships right there. You know what I mean? Like that. Anyway. Yeah. But no, I totally.
This is a whole other podcast.
I think whoever said like, oh, it's a good pun. Well, good on them because it was a very, either if not deliberate, inadvertent pun. And so well done. And for those who have not heard it, you're welcome for expanding. That one was free. Every other cultural expansion or expansion of your cultural awareness will cost an extra $5 a month on your membership.
Yes.
So because we are Americans, and we live in a capitalistic society, and everything is for sale, my friend.
Yay, capitalism!
All comes back to Pretty Woman.
Yeah. Yes. Big mistake. Huge. Yeah. Flippy little buggers. That's a good one. Cool. All right. Hit me with your gratitude today, brother.
You go first. I've been going first.
Okay. Mine is I went and picked up Fee this week.
Right. In Georgia. Yeah.
Drove down I left.
It's relatively easy.
It's an easy drive. It's a straight shot. It's just long. It's about so Waze tells me it's like 8.5 hours, but once you throw in all the stops and stuff, it's really closer to 10.
Yeah.
But I left Friday after the open, drove to Richmond, got a hotel, drove down to they're just outside Atlanta. So I drove down there, got V. We left there by like 5, stopped just past Charlotte on the way home, stayed in the hotel. Maybe I could have driven straight home. I might have been up for it, but also like Fee was really looking
No
forward.
pun intended.
But Fee really was like, she wanted to stay in a hotel. I was like, all right, we're gonna stay in a hotel.
That's fine.
And so she was really excited to stay in a hotel. But I guess my gratitude is my sister-in-law, who basically she has 4 kids of her own and took on ours. So took on an additional one, which really, like, come on, once you've had 4, what's 5, right? But took her on she had her for 10 days, and they loaded up their camper and they went to Alabama for they went to this water park and this roller coaster park, and they went to Mardi Gras, and so my gratitude is my sister-in-law for she took an extra kid on top of her 4 already, and Fee had a blast, and she was so happy. She was very happy to get home because I think her and her cousin started butting heads a little bit the last couple days, started getting sick of each other, which I think happens when you're with family after so long. Anyway, that's my gratitude, my sister-in-law. Thanks for giving Fee a wonderful time, and not so much that she didn't want to come home.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Mine is a kind of a random. I've been. I saw some posts from like folks. Anyway, there's a class of mids that I think they were 14, maybe. One of the kids' name was Ben Capaldi, and he was part of like the original group of Blue and Gold when we were getting started. We call him the plank owner. It's a term in the Navy when you're like the first commissioning crew of a ship or a command or whatever. So he was one of the plank owners for CrossFit Blue and Gold. And he ended up becoming the president when he was a junior, which was kind of unheard of as being president of an ECA. He was an awesome kid. Awesome. I have no idea where he is now and what he's doing, but I don't know how much he realized he shaped kind of my later things that I did with the Blue and Gold, but then also with when we opened Fairwinds and stuff. But one of the things, and I'm sure you've heard me say this, is buy nice or buy twice. And I got that from him. And it's funny how that lesson seems to need to be, it has like a periodicity of needing to be relearned for some reason, that you think like, I'm gonna save $50 on this thing, and I got a really good deal on it, and you get the thing and it fucking sucks. Right. And so it breaks in like a week or 2, and you're like, God damn it. And then you're like spending days and months trying to return it, and blah, blah, blah. And what do you end up doing in the end? You buy it again, or you end up buying the one that was
the nicer one anyway.
Because that, like, and it's not always, doesn't always hold true. Like there are sometimes worth, shopping around and just, but like, so what, you get what you pay for or whatever, but the buy nice or buy twice one just seems to resonate all the time.
Yeah.
So I wanted a sled. And I've been like, man, I don't know if I want to drop, when it's all said and done, like $200 or $250 on like a Rogue sled. So I'm looking at Titan because they got free shipping and blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, I got these like extra pieces of gear that I could make a sled. So I like started like collecting shit to like put one together, and I'm like, something happened or whatever. Like I was trying to start the project and it just was not going well. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? And I heard Ben Capaldi's voice in my head. It said, sir, buy nice or buy twice. And I just went on Rogue and I bought a slice sled.
Oh, there it is. Nice.
It
awesome.
showed up. Yeah. And it showed up. Part of it showed up Sunday. The rest showed up today. It's together. It's ready to go. Nicole's already like found the sled workouts that are on street parking. They've got like a whole track of things, of specific sled workouts. Super excited. I'm super excited. And I just had a chuckle to myself of like, fucking Capaldi, man. Because he and I sometimes we'd butt heads. We'd go to he'd be like, we need new kettlebells. Or we want this. Or we want that. And I'd be like, Ben, you got to work with what we got. We have no budget, right? Like,
Yeah.
you got to be kidding. You're trying to buy gear for kids that will be happy picking up dirt. Like, just make them shovel dirt. Like, we really, and he pulled it, buy nicer, buy twice, sir. And I'm just like, that doesn't apply here or whatever, right? So we butt heads.
You're saying buy more with no money. That's what you're saying.
Right, exactly. Like, you keep using that saying, but it doesn't work here. But no, most of the times he was, I mean, that's in retrospect, he was right. Like, in the end, ended up buying the nice shit anyway. It was just so I randomly had this moment of gratitude for Benjamin Capaldi and the buy nicer, buy twice as I was unpacking the Rogue slice sled, and it took me a grand total of probably 8 minutes.
Yeah, it's unpacking. Unpacking it takes more time.
It took longer, and this thing, the boys, this will be in my will to one of the boys, and they will probably hand it down to one of their children if CrossFit and functional fitness is still a thing, and they don't just like ditch it at some yard sale somewhere.
Careful with your boys, because at one point or another, a plate will wind up in Kitty Creek.
Yes. Well, we use clips here at Move, Learn, Succeed Part 2.
Or just load it up heavy enough.
Yeah.
That's
There you go. So that's my gratitude. Buy nicer, buy twice, folks. You ain't saving any money if it's going to take you an extra month and a half to fix your cheap ass buying habits when you could have just bought the thing you wanted in the first place.
Yep.
Quid pro quo. You're going to pay at some point. Pay now or pay later.
That's right. Either way, you're going to pay.
Either way, you're paying. Pay the man.
Yeah. Good stuff. Awesome, brother. All right.
Cool.
Hey, do we or do we not see double unders on? Do you think they throw a loop and don't make double unders this week?
Were they in? Were they
They've
in?
been-
Were they in the Open last year? I can't remember. They
So-
were. They did that last one, right? The thruster workout, the thruster
Go, yeah.
pull up into bar muscle up, and you had a right. There was like some
Double
random.
under.
Yeah, I don't even know if we had the bar muscle, but there was like some. It was a very low number. It was like the double unders were just kind of like they're annoyed.
They're windy. Yeah. So there's been double unders in every Open. Double unders. And,
So I don't know. I'm from a like what's the word I'm looking for? Like when something is balanced across like
Right.
all the workouts so far I've had a monostructural, a gymnastics, and a weightlifting. So the first one, right, monostructural, weightlifting, monostructural, gymnastics, weightlifting, gymnastics. So if you make that chipper have some sort of monostructural at the end, that could have been like a perfectly pyramidal chipper balanced, whatever, but whatever, it was a repeat. So that was well balanced as far as monostructural weightlifting, gymnastics. This last one was monostructural or gymnastics monostructural couplet with a single modality weightlifting. So from a standpoint of like, what would we see in the third one? It's
keeping it balanced. Monostructural would make sense as the double under.
Right. Like there could be a monostructural weightlifting gymnastics again with
These have already used the rower and stuff too.
Double under thing, box jump thing, right? So
I think chest to bars was another one that's shown up, if not 100% of the time, almost every year.
But we've done pull-ups already.
Right, that's what I thought. We've had. Well, I said I feel like this has been it's for the most part, it's been very pull heavy. Like there's been some pushing, relatively pull heavy, not a whole lot of squatting.
Well, I mean that thruster was push.
Well, I didn't say no push. But it's been a little bit heavier pull. It's been mostly push pull. Like the squat was like the thruster. Yeah, it was a heavy squat.
Wall ball was push.
And the wall ball, which was 30 reps.
Yeah,
So,
40. Wall ball was 40.
Was it 40? So
yeah, I think
there's been a squat push pull in everyone too.
There could be dubs. I don't. So the fact that they've been in every open workout, I think, is a function of they are very accessible monostructural movement, which also introduces a skill component to them. So they serve a function, kind of, you know, they two birds with one stone type of thing from a programming thing. But with the shuttle runs being introduced, it kind of removes the need to test what double unders as a monostructural movement test.
Yeah.
So if the open is to test capacity, which is 90% of its purpose,
right.
They kind of did that with 22.2.
Like the shuttle run is a way to test the capacity, but with by lowering the skill. So taking being a much lower skill movement,
right?
It's still true to the test,
right? But like a double under, they're kind of sneaky in that they kind of were they were tougher. You could go slow and not really get taxed.
Yeah,
yet still be taxed from the burpee pull-up. But if you want to have enough time in order to do more burpee pull-ups, you got to spend that energy. You got those shuttle runs could get smoky, right? You know, you get tough. So all to say that I wouldn't be surprised if there weren't double unders, because that aspect of the community's fitness has more or less been tested by the shuttle runs.
Yeah.
If there were, I also wouldn't be surprised, because there's a sense of consistency, but I would be less apt to say that there will be double unders because, quote unquote, they've been in every open. But they've been in every open because they hadn't really figured out a way to test monostructural other than an erg, a rowing, right? But rowing is its own thing. I'm not even sure. I mean, it's monostructural, but there's so much aspect of skill and power output and size and blah blah blah. Double unders, short, fat, skinny, kids who like to climb, kids who
climb rocks.
Double unders are hard for everybody until you kind of get proficient at them. But even once you're proficient at them, they still can smoke you.
You still have to find a way to manage them correctly without
So again, I feel like the shuttle runs did that in the context of what the open is testing and what function it is serving in the trajectory of the game's season, right? That aspect of what it's there to do. So I would be more apt, if I was betting, I would say that I would be less surprised not to see them than I would be more surprised to see them.
You'd be less surprised not seeing them than you would be surprised to see them.
Correct.
Which really, would it be a surprise to see them?
It wouldn't. Well, it wouldn't be because, but it wouldn't be oh my God,
double unders!
Double unders, that's right. Every year, I told you they were going to be in there. Every year, I'd be okay, got it. Take a breath. But at the same token, if they're not there, it's not going to be oh my God, they didn't have double unders. And I'm getting Charlie all excited. There weren't double unders. This is revolutionary. They're going a whole different way with the open. It's no, they tested.
It's falling apart at the seams. They don't know what they're doing over there.
The year that there wasn't thrusters, right? Wasn't that there was a year there wasn't thrusters?
I don't think there's. Has it been a year?
Yeah.
16 something. Yeah.
Perfectly fine with no thrusters.
Man, I am perfectly happy if these are because I said something about oh, thank God it's only it's a heavy thruster. Right? You only do a handful. Someone's well, the open ain't over yet. I'm don't say that. Don't say that. Hey, you don't say that.
But I would be surprised if we didn't see the dumbbell get used in some way.
You would be? Yeah.
And or the kettlebell. With it getting added to the equipment list, you took the judges course. Was there any kettlebell movements in the judges course?
Not that I remember. I don't think there were.
Then I doubt there will be kettlebells in the open.
If there's a kettlebell, I think it's going to be a carry, an overhead carry or something.
Well, good point.
I don't think it'll be swinging anything or a snatch. I think it'll be an overhead carry or something.
Yeah, there's an aspect. Again, it's an open art, or it's a journal article that Glassman writes that anything you can do with a kettlebell, you can do with a dumbbell.
Do the dumbbell.
You can do better with a dumbbell. And so Glassman was a significantly more a bigger fan of dumbbells than kettlebells.
Yeah.
And Bosman is of the school of the original kind of, like I think I'm not to say that Castro wasn't, but I think he would be more apt to use a dumbbell because it is easier to judge from a video and in-person judging standpoint. Yeah. Kettlebell swings, kettlebell snatches, kettlebell, like all that stuff, that's really, really hard.
Kettlebell swing, like where do you, what's the
right?
Like, where do you?
They've been they were at regionals one year and it was a shit show. Like 11 or 12, like it was just a nightmare because what was full range of motion when they were at the games, when they did Pyramid Helen, there was like all kinds of people like right. So, and that was almost 15 years ago. Yeah. Can you imagine all the people now? Like, what would happen? Hiller would have years of video
content. Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. Oh man, he would be having a field day.
Yeah. So anyway, I'd be interested. This is a really long. I really don't care.
I knew that. I knew asking is like, I know he doesn't care what shows up. I'm just curious.
Right.
Like,
I love those. I did them on Saturday just as there's a street parking workout, one of the vaults that I was trying to get done.
Have them fresh.
My damn left calf cramped and seized again. It comes and goes.
Same one that's always
so I'm nursing that a little bit, and I'm like, so if they don't show up, I wouldn't be too upset. But it will be fine, I'm sure, by Friday. And again, like I just would have to manage it in smaller sets, 10s and 15s, So it's all a thing.
Yeah.
40. How old am I? 45, 46? I don't know. There's always something. There's always something that's a little bit tweaky.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was way to open that can of worms. Out the door.
Go clean up your worms.
Yeah. What else do you want to talk about?
Don't give any worms to Charlie.
Oh,
my God. Cool. All right, brother.
All right.
Hey, I'll see you Friday.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
For dubs. For double unders.
For dubs. 10 to 15 minutes time. Got it.
All right, man.
Later, dude.
Later.